Well, hello and good morning, everybody. This is Jeremiah, and I hope you are ready for a fantastic webinar. We have Michael Brightman with us here, who is, in addition to incredible qualifications, of course, just being a smart, savvy guy, architecture background, and wrote a book on a SketchUp workflow for architecture. You can get that on Amazon for like $30. Definitely recommend it. But he's also an incredibly nice guy, and keep bumping into him at trade show events. And we have been talking about this guest webinar for over a year now. And so the stars have finally aligned. So very excited to have him with us. A couple quick little housekeeping things on this webinar. At the top of your screen, there's a view options, and boy, I sure like clicking that and exiting the full screen view just so it doesn't take over my entire monitor. And there is a Q&A area. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions asked, so please feel free to type those in. We got a few people here who'll be typing answers back and getting them queued up for Mike to answer live as well. But all that being said, I'm going to hand this over to Mike, who's going to show us part of this incredible workflow involving Lumion, which, I mean, just get ready. This is going to be pretty impressive stuff. So, all right, Mike, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremiah. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate that. And so, yeah, as Jeremiah mentioned, my name is Mike Brightman. My company's Brightman Designs, and we offer design, drafting, visualization, and workflow training services. And I wrote a book on SketchUp, the SketchUp workflow for architecture, and we developed some tools for automating that process, the conduct tools, and really everything we do, it focuses on SketchUp Pro layout, which is the 2D portion of SketchUp Pro, our conduct tools extension for SketchUp, and Lumion. And so really, I guess I would say I'm a bit of a SketchUp pro, and I know a lot about how to pick up the ball and run with SketchUp once you get your model there. And so what's really impressive about Land Effects is that, and I'm admittedly not a Land Effects user. It's just I'm not a landscape architect, but I understand the workflow, and I see how there's this connectivity between 2D CAD and the 3D SketchUp environment. So going back and forth between there, if you can get your design into SketchUp, I can show you how to take it real far. And so I was pretty stoked to see that the models come out really nice and clean. And it's my understanding I do have the Lobster Mansion model, which is like a fresh export out of Land Effects. And I've developed two different workflows to show you guys today. One is going to be working with that Land Effects export so that you don't break the link, so that it goes from Land Effects into SketchUp, and you can scoot things around and have that talk back to your Land Effects in CAD. And that same model in SketchUp can go into Lumion, create your renderings. And when you go back and make some changes, it's going to be seamless. You're going to get your renderings in your Lumion presentation is going to be updated seamlessly. So that's one workflow. That's really good for the design process. The other workflow is to break the link. And sometimes breaking that link, it just makes things easier, allows us to use all of our Lumion plants in a more dynamic way. And I'll show you some of those, that workflow as well. We're going to kind of demonstrate the process with the first one for the design process, and then go along with it and say, okay, now we're ready to really present. Let's break the link and move into this other workflow. So just a little bit about Lumion though. Lumion, it is a standalone application. You download that onto your machine. It's its own thing. It's not a plugin. It's not an extension. It really does create beautiful renderings extremely quickly and very, very easily. It's one of the easiest programs I've ever used. And with that said, you get up and running quick, and that's great because everything looks good. It goes fast, and you have success. But there's plenty of runway to keep going with it and dig in and find these advanced tips and tricks and really dial up your renders. So tagline being beautiful renders within reach. That could not be more true. So let's take a look at the Lobster Mansion. Okay, so this is a project that was handed off to me by Paul and Jeremiah, and just said, hey, see what you can do with this. So this is a pretty cool Land Effects project, and when it comes into SketchUp, we get a couple of different things happening. Some of these trees, they do look nice. I like them. And you could certainly render this in SketchUp, but if you take it into Lumion, we can really dial up the quality of these graphics. So what we're going to do is we're going to import this model into Lumion, and I'm going to show you how you can swap out the SketchUp materials and replace them with Lumion materials. And there's also a new foliage material. So we're going to apply leaves to these trees and these trees back here. And I'll show you how that link stays put. And then I'm going to show you also, let's see, let me save that, make sure those are on. We're going to show you how to place Lumion trees as well. Okay, so over in Lumion, let's talk about this rendering program. Again, it's very quick and easy, works with any 3D modeling software. You can import direct SKPs, works with Rhino, Revit, 3D DWGs, 3ds files, OBJ files, Collada files. Any 3D program will find its way in here, and you can create beautiful stills, animations, virtual tours, and even virtual reality. It's all in one package. So really, Lumion is much more than just a rendering program. So let's start a new scene. And the first thing that blew me away about Lumion is that when I get in here, the sky's blue, the clouds are out, the sun's out, and the grass is green. All right, so if I look up at the sky, I can choose to adjust my environment, dial up some clouds, I can dial down the clouds, I can change different cloud types. So I have full control over this environment. Very quick and easy. Everything's based on these sliders, kind of like a video game. Now, if the sun goes down to like dusk, this blows me away too. The clouds get kind of pinkish. So that's pretty cool. Like, I mean, that just happens. You know, normally you'd have to drop those sky backgrounds in Photoshop with a bunch of post-processing, not with Lumion. All right, and if we go to the nighttime, even when we do that, the moon's out, the star's out, clouds are still working just the same. I mean, it's just a really fast and easy control, full control of your environment. And check this out. The grass is green. I can go to my landscape tab. You know, you've got these 4 tabs where we work. And I can turn on my 3D grass. So here's my grass. Turn that on. And I'll just turn up the grass size and the grass height. Maybe bring that down a little. And let me adjust one setting before we move on. Okay, yeah, high quality trees. That's good. So look at that. We've got our 3D grass. We've got our sun out. The sky's blue. We are ready to render. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to import that lobster mansion into Lumion, and we're going to place it at a known point. I always use 050. All right. So we're going to go over to our objects, and here we have our imports, and I'm going to click on Import New Model. All right. So for that, I'm going to go over to my presentations, land effects presentation, and here's the lobster mansion. All right, so that's the one that Jeremiah and Paul handed off to me. I'll choose open and add that to my library. And that's going to import all that geometry in. It's going to optimize it for Lumion. And all I have to do is click to place it, just like that. All right, so let's kind of fly up here. And the first thing I do, you can see that like the UCS icon, the UCS system is down here. If I go to my move mode, I can place that at a known point. So I want to set this to be at 0, and then 5 for the vertical, and 0. Now, 050 doesn't mean anything. It's just lifting it above the Lumion ground plane. You could do really any number. I just always use 050 just because I remember it. All right, then I'll hit deselect, and then I'm going to zoom in on this thing. So check this out. As I zoom in, you can see that our SketchUp materials are a little bit bland, right? So all we have to do is swap our materials. I go over to my materials tab, click on this, and click once on the grass. Now, I'm going to assign this SketchUp grass to be Lumion landscape. Watch what happens. 3D grass, just like that. So anything that I painted with grass in SketchUp, or I assume that came from land effects, but that would become 3D grass in Lumion. All right, so some other materials would be like, grass and glass. So check this out. I hover on this glass, click once. I'm going to call this Lumion glass. Now I have reflectivity, I have transparency properties, so I can kind of mess with the glass. I can even change the color. We even have pure glass, which is really slick for decorative glass. All right, let's keep moving along here and just add a few more materials. Check out the water. Now on this one, There's only one water material, so we didn't get our waterfall, but I fixed this, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But when I click here, I'll go to my Nature tab and click on Water. All I have to do is swap out my Lumion water, and look at those. I mean, to get water that animates and shows those caustics like that, that's very difficult in any other rendering program. And like I mentioned, all we have to do is assign a waterfall material here, and we're going to do that once we reload the model in just a moment. I'll show you that. This is our asphalt material. I'll just go back here and choose again from imported material. And let's just go back to our outdoor, and we'll go to our asphalt. And on the second tab there, we have this asphalt wet. Double click on that. I like to dial up the colorization, bring it down to make it a little bit darker, and then back off the reflectivity just a little bit. All right, but I think the cool thing I was going to do here, I swapped the rock already, so you can see that this rock is a Lumion material. But check this out. We have this new foliage tab. So I can then, let's see, I was having a little, this is a little trickier. I need to dial up my spread and then bring up the ground level, okay? Now, with anything, if I hold shift, it slows down my menu. So I'm trying to get that ground, yeah, there we go. That ground level set a little closer, and then we can hold shift and dial up that spread and have that ivy just grow right up that material. You can change the leaf size and the leaf type. So like even a material, it's very easy to get like a very authentic look to like these older materials. And like on that stone, I can dial up weathering. So I can go like, here's our stone weathering, and I can dial that up. And you can kind of see that like fill in. It just really breaks up those kind of tiled materials, makes them very authentic. All right, so whether or not that's overgrown or not in this environment, we're gonna leave it like that for now. All right, now let's get to these trees here. All right, so and certainly if I cut out, definitely let me know. So I'm just gonna click once on this material. I'm gonna go to my nature collection and click on leaves. All right, so now I can just choose any of these leaves, and look at that. So it kind of blows up those trees. Now, I know that those aren't, you know, landscape architects, in my experience, they're pretty particular about the way the leaves are flowing and spreading and this and that, and I get that totally. So, you know, this is kind of a quick fix just to kind of add some more realism to your land effects trees. But if I go here and dial down the leaf size, I can kind of mess with that. I can dial up the leaf spread, you know, kind of get it to either be clean or kind of bulging there. And so we got all those, and we can come over here and maybe we'll pick one of these guys. I'll go to nature, leaves, and again, maybe I'll throw the red leaves on there. All right. And we'll pick this one here. That's another material, nature, leaves, and there's the red ones. So looks good. All right. So that at least will pass for trees right now. And this is what I was describing as kind of the workflow that goes back and forth between land effects to SketchUp to Lumion. So when you're really working and designing, you don't want to break that link up too much. I would say another thing you could do is you could swap out some of these trees. So like maybe what you do is you leave your land effects SketchUp model in place, but then you start to decide like I'm going to place objects in Lumion. And so I would go in here and I'd say like, all right, I'm going to go to place mode. I'm going to go to my nature library, and I'll click on this that swatch to get to my nature library. Check out how huge this nature library is. I think there's like, I know there's over 1,000 plants and trees. It might be like 2,000, but each one of these tabs has several sub-tabs. So these are small leaf trees. We've got like all these different options here. Lots of different trees. You can certainly search in here like, we can search for like an oak tree. So here's a bunch of oak trees. So there are some ability to search. Oftentimes you got to kind of track down. I do a Google image search and take a look at like the scientific name of the tree, see what it looks like, and then I find the comparable in here. So we got medium leaf. Each one of these, like I said, has several sub-tabs: large leaf, conifers, palm trees. Lots of action in here, not to mention the flowers and plants. So I'm going to go over here. It looks like maybe just a couple of tabs in, I think we found this flowering dogwood. So what I can do is just kind of click at the base of this tree and place these. All right, so I can go around like this and place these trees. And I can tell you that these Lumion trees, they're beautiful. They are blowing in the breeze. They respond to weather. They're fully optimized, so these will not slow down your model. All right, so, but the problem is that we've got that SketchUp tree kind of floating in the middle of it, right? So we want to get rid of that. All right, so I'm going to hop back into SketchUp, into our lobster mansion. Again, this is the original that straight out of Land Effects, right? I'll select each one of these and then right-click and choose Hide. So I just hid those 3 trees that I planted in Lumion, and I'm going to save this. Now, I'll go back into Lumion, and I'm going to reload my model. I like to just click on a material, and that brings up this wrench, and I can choose Reload Model. Watch what happens. Reload the model, and that's going to get rid of those SketchUp trees that we just hid. Sweet, just like that. All right. Now, so we're good to go on those trees. And you know, I'm looking off in the horizon there, and I'm not loving the setting. Let's do something quick here. I'm going to go to Landscape. I'm going to go to Ocean. I'm going to click the power button to turn the ocean on. And then I'm going to just click on this slider for the height. And we're going to bring that height down. Let's see. Oh, a little too high. So check that out. This is our ocean. So quick and easy just to get that water effect. I used to steer clear of any rendering that had water or large sites. Pretty impressive how easy it is to kind of make this thing look right. And you can see too, it's like interacting with my SketchUp model. It's kind of breaking on the beach there. And check this out. We've got color 1. Maybe I want to go more of like Caribbean style, right? So we'll go like, you know, up in this zone. And color 2, we're going to go more into this zone, dial up the brightness. Maybe that's more like putt-putt golf. Let's dial that down. Something like that. Perfect. All right, so now we got like our Caribbean scene here. And wherever this thing lives, it's, let's see, we'll dial up our brightness on that one too. Cool. All right, so it's very easy to control that entire environment. But back to the task at hand. All right, so these trees, you saw how I can plant each one of those trees. Well, that takes a while, and that's kind of duplicating work because technically you've already planted these trees in Land Effects. You've sent it out to SketchUp. The tree exists in SketchUp. And so we want to just use the work that we've already done. So there's a bit of a workaround here. There's no true component swap, but we do have this thing called node placement in Lumion. And I can tell you that like this model, it's right on the edge of like, I would use the node placement for this model. It's got enough plants and trees in it that I would rather just do this process. But if it's a small project like a garden bed, I might just plant it manually. So let me show you how I clean up these models. All right, I'm going to go over back to Lobster Mansion here. And what I need to do is I need to group each one of these kind of different tree types. So in SketchUp, what I can do is go to my components browser. I can click on the house icon, and then I can get to see like which components are in my model. All right, so we've got like, let's see, what is this one called? This tree is our TD Cercis. So here it is right here. I'm going to right click on it and choose Select Instances. So in my component browser, if I click that house icon, I can right click on a component and choose Select Instances. And see what it did? Grabbed all those instances in my model. So I don't have to go do it manually. Right click, make component, and I'll just title this TD Cercis. All right. We're going to set our component axes. This is real important. Set my component axes to be at our SketchUp origin. Just like that, and I'll choose Create. So now what that does, it's created this kind of container holding those trees with the exact same origin point. That means that when I pull it into Lumion, I can easily type that 050 again, and those trees are going to sit right where I want them. All right. Now the last part of this is to right click on the tree and choose Reload. And I'm going to reload this with what I call a proxy. I just go over here to Dropbox, Brightman Designs. resources, and we've got one in our components. So I'm going to go over to our Flora and choose this proxy and choose open. And see what that did? It replaced all those trees with this simple little triangle node. Now, when I pull this into Lumion and I do the node placement, it's going to plant a tree right at that origin. All right. So what that did is it got rid of those trees. Certainly, you could kind of duplicate those components as you go through, and it'd be easy enough to save the trees in SketchUp, or you're probably just going to reload it anyway from land effects. But either way, there's a clever way to make that happen. All right. So again, what you do is you right-click on this component, choose Select Instances, and see it grab those. Right-click, Make Component. This guy is, I think it's Salvia, we'll just say Salvia 3. And set component axes. Real important that our component axes are at the origin. And we'll choose Create. I go in here, right-click, Reload. And we'll choose, again, Dropbox, Brightman Designs. And, actually what I would do is once I've got my proxy in there, which I should have that in here. What is that called? This is called our BD proxy. So I'm going to go ahead and replace, let's see, house. Oh, it's a component and component. All right, that's okay. We'll just go ahead and reload these same way and call this Dropbox, Brightman Designs, Resources, Components, and we'll hop in here to our Flora and replace it with our proxy. Okay, then I need to save these out into a folder I call Nodes. So I save as, I throw these out into our presentation folder. And so I make a folder called Nodes, and I have each one of those listed here. So I've already done this. So I saved each one of those out. And now what we're going to do is in Lumion, we're going to switch over to the different model. All right, so let me show you what that model looks like. This is what I would call a render-ready model. All right, so this is the exact same Lobster Mansion model, except I've gone through and I've cleaned it all up. And I'm certainly more than happy to share any of these files with you guys. Now, I've not only cleaned it up, but see, I left these intact, and I cleared out the nodes, because once they're saved out, I don't need them in this file. All right, and I've got this render tab. This is our condoc template. Comes with a lot of layers that just help you keep things organized. When I click on render, that switches everything on and off that I want to be ready for rendering. Okay, so I'll save this render ready model. Now, when I import this, when I reload this model, we're going to lose all these trees. And then what we're going to do is import each one of those different node files and do a node placement. All right, so in Lumion, you can see that right now my SketchUp plants, while they look really good in SketchUp, we really want to swap these out in Lumion. All right, so I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to click on a material and click on my wrench and choose reload from a new model. So I'll click on that. And here's our Lobster Mansion render ready. That's what I just showed you. We'll choose open. It's going to be the same file. It's going to load right up, and we should be good to go. Perfect. All right. Now the other thing, let's see, we've got our trees kind of underwater, submerged there. We won't get too hung up on that just yet. And these guys are still intact. That's good. And so I think what we'll do is import the Cersus. I think that was the one that was kind of obvious. All right. So I'm going to kind of back out here. I'm going to go to my objects and go to place mode. And I'm going to get the active tree in my model. All right. So you can see that right now I want my active tree. We already use this flowering dogwood. Let's use like the pink flowering dogwood. So we'll go with something a little bit bigger here like that. All right. So I'm going to make that my active tree in the library. And then I'm going to go to imports. All right. And we're going to import one of those node files. So I'll import a new model, land effects presentation. These are the nodes that I already showed you. And here's this Cersus. All right. So I'll choose open and add that to my library. And then I'm just going to click. All right, doesn't matter where. Go straight over to move mode, and I'm going to move this thing to the known point, right? So it's going to be at 0, 5, 0. All right, so what that means is that my little nodes, all right, let me zoom in and show you these little triangles here. See those little triangles sitting right there? Quick and easy. All right, you do this process a couple times, it becomes brainless, right? All right, so now I'm going to go over to my context menu, and I need to just click on that node import.
And actually, Mike,
Yes.
it was a little jumpy there.
Sure.
And I'm thinking maybe if we turned the ocean off, I'm thinking it's just trying to push so much out over the webinar. Or
Yeah, let me
just
try
see the
that.
whole ocean moving. I think that might be taxing it out. And then if you could show that little node replacement again.
There we go. See if that doesn't help there. And I'll slow down just a little bit too. But so, all right, so where we're at right now, and I'll do it twice here. So let me just finish this one, and we'll go to, so we've imported those nodes. We've placed them at 0, 5, 0. I don't know if we took a look at the nodes. Maybe that didn't come through, but you can see those little triangles sitting right where those trees belong. All right, so I got everything to line up just perfectly. All right, so now I'm going to back out, and I'm going to go to my context menu. I'm going to hover on the Surface node and go to Extra and choose Place Item on Nodes. So I'll click that. I'm going to place the current tree on nodes. Watch what happens. All those trees drop right in. All right. So while all day long, I would love to just keep spamming Lumion with a feature request for a component swap. That would be a beautiful feature. This is the workaround that we have. And honestly, it's not that hard to do. It's just takes a few steps. So let's do it again. All right, so I'm going to go to place mode again. I'm going to click on imports and go to import new model. And this time I'll pull in the fern. Okay, so we'll go to fern and choose open. Add that to my library. And then it doesn't matter where I click. I'll just click right there. And now you can see that the fern, it's selected. It's up there above my model. I'll go to move mode, position this fern at 0, and we're going to go to 5, and then 0. All right. So basically what happened now is that fern is sitting right where it's supposed to be. I'm going to go to place mode, and I'm going to load up the right fern. All right. So we'll go to our library. In the search panel, I'm going to type in fern. And this one looks good. Why not? Cinnamon fern. All right. So now the active plant that I want is in there. Go back to my context menu on move mode. Click on, let me delete this Surface 1, and then we'll go to our fern. Click extra, place item on node, place current tree on node. All right. So now we've got our ferns. So you can see that's how you can plan it. So, you know, like I mentioned, you know, this process, I think it's good. It's kind of a buried feature in Lumion, but it's good to know that, like, if you have a massive site, that you don't have to plant every single tree manually in Lumion. There is a way to get it over here, but truth is, for smaller sites, I would go in and just manually click, 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 and knock out all these different flowers and ferns and things. So we're good to go there. Let me do this. I want to show you one other material. We'll go to materials. And you can see in my render ready model, I swapped that out with a waterfall material. We'll go to nature, waterfall, and click here. All right, so now we've got a waterfall. The other thing you can do is if you use the same materials over and over and over, you can build a material library or material set. So for this particular project, I already knocked it all out, and I'll go to material set and choose load. And you can see here I've got my lobster mansion materials. So I loaded everything up, and now it should be in good shape. So let that go. So if you think about it, if you use the same SketchUp materials over and over, you can build a Lumion material set. And every time you start a new project, load that material set in there and you're good to go. All right. Now, before we start making some pretty pictures here, I want to make sure I've got everything kind of planted. All right. So I think a good point to make about the merge model feature is that I could make one model like set up like this, save a copy of it, and tell my colleague, hey, I'm going to work on materials. Would you work on setting up all these plants and these node placements? So I'm going to be working on the materials. I'm going to be working on the camera views. And then at the end of the day, colleague says, hey, Mike, we're ready to drop those plants in. So you can disperse work amongst the team very easily with this technique. And I would go to Files, Load Scene, and choose Merge Models. I'm going to merge this Lobster Mansion model because I've already planted everything. We're going to drop everything into our model. All right. So I'm going to, we'll just remove the models. Model library, we're going to remove those models, and our imported, we're going to leave that alone. And I'll say OK. And check that out. So I've already done all this work. You can see that like I've dropped a few sports cars in the driveway. I've got all my Lumion plants. I did all those node placements. We've got our waterfall happening there. I've even got some birds in the sky. Where is that guy? There's those objects. Yeah, there's the bird. So you can see him flying in the sky. If you run an animation, that bird's just circling, running patterns around your house. So lots of really cool little objects you can add in Lumion. So again, some birds. And let's see, if I go to here, yeah. So the birds are all pre-animated. They're all hanging out. If I look back over here, they're flying around. So lots of cool options for really dressing up your renderings, breathing life into those renderings in Lumion. All right, I got this guy flying a little low. That's all right. Okay, so now what we want to do, we've created our, imported our model. We've swapped those textures. We've planted our trees, added some objects. Now what I want to do is go over into my photo mode. All right, so the photo studio is where we set up our camera views. All right, so I'm just going to kind of zoom over here. I found kind of a nice view of this particular scene over here. So I kind of like looking at it from this tree, and I'm going to use my focal length to adjust that. And it's kind of cool if you get like a little bit of a tree in the foreground, and something like that could be kind of nice. All right, so we're going to take a snapshot. Now, the really slick thing about Lumion is that we are going to pre-process. We're not going to post-process. A lot of rendering programs and plugins, you render a beautiful image and it looks good, but then you got to go and touch everything up in Photoshop, adjust exposure, add the noise to the image, color correction, selective saturation. There's all these things that you would do in Photoshop that we can do right here inside of Lumion before we render. So Lumion is really a massive software replacement. This program simplifies your workflow in a way that, a lot of people will call this a rendering program. It's so much more than that. So let's do that. We're going to add effects. So I'll click on New Effect. I can add effects, kind of simple world effects like the sun. All right, and then I can adjust the sun heading for this particular image. I can add another effect like shadows. All right, I'll turn on high quality shadows. I can do exterior shadows and dial up my omni shadow. You can see omni shadows really kind of add some more contrast to your shadows. We can add another one. Let's see, reflections. Reflections are cool because Lumion is really leveraging your computer's resources in a very clever way. It's not making every surface give a true reflection. You get to say, I want for my windows, my glass, to have a pure reflection. So I can add a reflection plane to my glass, and maybe I'll add another reflection plane, maybe on here like that. And that's going to be on our the wet asphalt material there. All right, so now we've got some perfect reflections happening there. I'm going to also turn on speed ray reflections. That was a new feature as well in, shoot, I think that was Lumion 6 when that came about, but that's a big deal too. All right, let's keep on rocking with these effects. All right, so then there's the autumn generator, turns everything to autumn. Global illumination, if you're using lights, you can like get a much more photorealistic effect. Make yourself underwater, that's all good. Really cool thing like clouds. Again, we don't have to go back to build mode to adjust our clouds. I can adjust the cloud position, the master cloud amount. Let's dial that down, kind of work on the position a little bit. You know, depending on what you want your scene to look like, you can make these really dynamic skies. All right, let's keep going. Volume clouds are like three-dimensional clouds, volumetric sunlight. I mean, effects like snowing. You click on snow and it's snowing. There's all these really cool things you can do with Lumion. They're so easy. Click of a button and it happens. All right, so what else do we have? Objects, that's not so much for our photo studio, but check this out. Something like depth of field. This is rather difficult to accomplish. You might do this in Photoshop, but activate depth of field. I'm going to turn on autofocus. I'm going to edit my autofocus, and I'm going to set my focal point to be right on that front of the house. I'll choose OK. Now I can dial up the amount. So, you know, just go nuts on it. See what it does. See how it's like blurring out the background and the foreground? Well, I can dial this slider and choose foreground or background. And what do I want to be nice and sharp and crisp and clear? Usually you want to kind of dial it back down, and I'll just choose a little bit of that depth of field effect. That's cool enough, right? All right, so then we keep rocking here. Depth of field, lens flare, 2-point perspective. I think that's a really nice one. It kind of gets everything kind of squared up with the camera frame. And let's talk about that post-processing. Look at this. You've got like bloom. You can overlay your company logo. You've got color correction, selective saturation, sharpness. We even have like analog color lab. All right, so these are like the Instagram effects. I'll dial up the amount just to get to understand it. And look at all these different like effects you can apply. All right, so we're doing it pretty dramatically because I dialed up the amount. What I would recommend is pick one you like and then always dial it back down. So I think like 1.4 is usually a pretty cool one, and I'm going to bring it back down quite a bit. Just gives it like that kind of hazy, I don't know, 70s beach style or whatever. All right, so a little bit more here, and then we're going to render. We've got noise. That always kind of adds a little bit of extra texture to the image. And then hyperlight on. That's an extra overlay of just more photorealism. I always jack that way up. All right. Now, check this out. I can render this. I'm going to do 1920 by 1080. I'll hit this. I'm going to render this to my exports folder. I'm going to make a new folder for today. And I always title my folders 170630. So it's year, month, day. And we're going to do our exports for today. This will be image 1. So watch how fast this renders. If you've had any experience with any other rendering program, the ability to knock this thing out within, I don't know, this is probably going to take like 20 seconds to get through this rendering at 1920 by 1080. That's unheard of. I mean, stills are coming out of here in like seconds versus hours. And animations are the same deal. You can get something in minutes rather than like 24 hours or days of rendering. And again, it's like you can have the choice to get it now, or you can dial all the quality up and let it cook all weekend and really get the anti-aliasing going. That's for animations, but for stills, pretty slick, pretty easy. Let's take a look at that. Here's our exports, and here's for today. Okay. So there's one image. I can tell you that I'm not totally satisfied with that image. I spent a little bit more time on this other one. And what I did is I built all these different effects into the image, and I saved it as an effect stack. So what you do is you just click on this wrench here and go to File and choose Load, well, Save. And you can save these effects. And then you go to Load, and you can load up an effect stack. So oftentimes I kind of call these the photoreal dream. It's a little bit more kind of bloom and hazy than your typical photoreal. So let's load that one up. So you can see I've got a little more contrast in the shadows. I spent a little bit more time on this. So this makes it really, really easy for an office to expedite the process of making beautiful renderings. Let's say that everyone in your office has their own skill set. Well, maybe not everyone has the skill set of tweaking these images to look a certain way, but I'll bet you got one person who does. So they can be your master of graphic standards, build your effect stacks, and then all your team has to do is load those in. You get the same look every time. So let's do that. I'll go over here to a new scene, and I'll kind of scoot around over here and maybe pick something like this shot here, and I'll go a little more dramatic and a little more plants in there. All right, I'll take a snapshot, and then I'll go to our file and choose load. I can load up that Lobster Mansion effect stack just like that, and the only thing I have to do is just tweak around some of the settings. So I might choose depth of field. I need to edit that, and I'm going to set the depth of field at the front of the house and say okay. And our exposure, everything looks good. And maybe the only other thing I would adjust is like the sun. So maybe my sun heading, I would want to tweak that around and get some more dramatic shadows happening. Perfect. At this point, you could choose save photo set. You could render all your photos up to 10 at a time. And honestly, if each one is taking like 20 or 30 seconds, you can go grab a cup of coffee and you've got your presentation. If you want to dial it up, render it 3840 or even poster size, you know, maybe that takes an hour or two, but you can still get everything you need so quickly, so easily out of Lumion. Again, it maintains that link. So if you're changing things in your SketchUp model, always have the ability to reload over here and save your work. So if I went back into Lumion, if I went back into SketchUp and changed the look of the house, we can reload that and re-export our images. And I think I'm getting close on time, so I'm just going to start wrapping up here just to briefly explain too our movie studio. Same thing. I hit record, take a snapshot, scoot over here, take a snapshot, scoot over here, and take a snapshot. This is my camera path. So now I've created an animation that's going to fly by this fountain. It looks good. I can make it move a little slower. Slower is always better. Pause this, say okay. Now, just like I did with my stills, you know, I could even take this effect stack that I've already tweaked for this particular angle. I'm just going to go here and choose edit and copy those effects. And then I'm going to hop over here into our movie studio. And on this particular clip, I'm going to paste those effects. So, all right, and then I got to adjust my focal length here. So let's see. All right, so 2-point perspective off. That's for sure. And let's just hit play. I won't dig too deep into those settings, but you can see now we zoom around there. And we're good to go. All right, so I think what I would do is just add one more effect, and that would be our handheld camera. Okay, handheld camera is in use. So let me get to that one. That's where our focal length is messed up. And there it is. And so we forced a different focal length. Perfect, something like that. All right, so see now we've got that clip moving. And so rather than exporting like this 15-minute long animation that takes forever to render, what we do in Lumion is we cut up our timeline right here. So this is also replacing like iMovie or Adobe Premiere, After Effects. You don't have to edit things like that. So I'm going to take a snapshot, maybe scoot around this way, take a look at that, snapshot, hit play. That looks good. All right, so we'll say okay. Now check it out. We've got this clip here. I'm going to copy the properties of this clip, and we're going to paste our clip, our properties on this one. So you can see that once you get set up, it's really easy to keep things moving. All right, so check this out. We're going to watch the entire movie. So now we're going to go through our first clip, and you can see we're going to kind of scoot by the fountain. And then it's going to break right here at this line, and it's going to cut to our other clip. We can fade in and out. We can add people walking. There's just so many possibilities. We could go on forever. So what I'm getting at, though, is that Lumion it's not just a rendering program. It creates stills, animations, virtual tours, and virtual reality presentations. It always maintains a dynamic link with your model. You're not going to be reproducing work. You're always moving forward. It works very seamlessly with land effects, kicking out to SketchUp. That SketchUp model, you can choose to either continue to work with it and send it back to CAD, or you can choose to send it over to Lumion, create your presentations. I really think that Lumion's a pretty strong asset when it comes to dialing up your SketchUp models, making them look better. So let me pause this and say, again, you can check out Lumion, lumion.com or lumion3d.com. That's where you can download a trial. And if we'll throw a link out there too. You can access a 1 week long unwatermarked pro trial. And so our friend Lorenzo in Atlanta will help you guys out with that. We'll get you his email. But definitely give it a shot. You want to make sure you read the specs. Make sure you understand what kind of computer you need to run it on, or else you might not have the smooth, or it won't look as easy as what I'm doing. So you want to check the specs. Make sure you got a good machine. This won't run on like a Chromebook. It's Windows only as well. So anyways, again, my name is Mike Brightman, Brightman Designs. We offer design, drafting, visualization, and workflow training services. We do offer office hours. So if you're working in SketchUp and just kind of curious, check out or have questions about certain projects, come check us out. We do once a month, free for an hour. I'll answer any questions and keep you moving forward. And we offer online consulting as well. So hopefully this has been of value, and certainly would love to answer any questions that you guys have regarding SketchUp and Lumion and whatever you see. So thank you for having me.
Mike, that was so amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
We do have some great questions for you. And
Sure.
first, remind everyone, of course, this is being recorded. And when we publicize the recording link with next week's webinar, we'll maybe include that link for the that 1 week trial, that pro trial.
Yeah.
But we had a couple great questions on material sets,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I got a good understanding of the effect stack. But for the material set, can you just kind of show where that is again? But also just like, would that be kind of similar to an effect stack where maybe one person might be kind of assembling a good
Mm-hmm.
collection of them? Kind of what exactly? Also, just help me out again with what exactly
Yeah.
is a material set, and is that, as I'm understanding it, is someone would kind of start assembling a good collection of office specific
Mm-hmm.
desired materials?
Yeah. So here's the way that works. And let me preface this with, let's see, I can go. Okay. So we're back live on my screen. So the way I would first start off is saying that I don't know too many people who are good at organizing their libraries. Me personally, I write about it and I push for it and I encourage you to do it. And I even slip up. It's a difficult thing, but if you can stay meticulous on it and make a well-organized material library, what you would do is, like in SketchUp, let me go to our render ready one. All right. So what I would do is I would take this SketchUp material. All right. So this is called vegetation, grass, artificial. Now, I'm going to look at which materials are in our model. And what you would do is like find that material in here. It's probably towards the end. I would personally rather rename it. And I always rename things with like an acronym like BD for Brightman Design. So capital BD underscore grass, whatever it is. But the issue is, and the reason I bring that up is that what I've done is I've linked my model up with I've linked the material name in SketchUp with the material properties in Lumion. So if I change this material name right now, it's going to break that link, and that material is going to go back to just being imported. So you want to be a little meticulous with it. You want to like get all your SketchUp all your SketchUp materials set up, and maybe you want them named, maybe you don't care. I don't like seeing stuff, I don't know, just random naming conventions, but you're going to save them out. All right. So I would right click on this and choose save as, and I would put this material into like Dropbox, Brightman Designs, resources, and see I've got BD materials. And so I've been setting up our material library similar to Lumion. So like maybe this would be like a nature material under grass. And you can see I've already got like BD grass 01, 05. And so this one, I might, yeah, the name, see the file name and the actual material name are two of their own things. So anyway, I'll just save that. All right, so that's what you would do. You'd save out each one of these materials. And like this one, Asphalt New, that's the name in Lumion that's recognizing those materials. So you want to build a nice clean library. And then when you're using your materials in SketchUp, you're going to click on here and choose Open or Create a Collection. And you're going to go to like Brightman Designs, Resources, Materials. All right, I'm going to choose Select Folder. And then I'm going to click on this again and choose Add Collection to Favorites. All right, brings up the same one right there. All right, so now every time I click on this drop down, I can always get to Brightman Designs Materials. I don't want to use these default SketchUp materials because those are not the ones that we're working with. Although I will tell you that we've been working on like, what if we just assign Lumion materials to every single SketchUp material that comes with it, so that if you just go and use the defaults, you can load up a material set and things just explode into life. But what I would do is make my own, because you're probably going to want, I don't know, like using the default SketchUp materials. I think it looks like a SketchUp model. All right, so we'll go indoor. You know, you've got our nature, and we've got our grass, and then you can see here we've got our vegetation grass artificial. So every time I start a new SketchUp model, every time I paint with that grass, I'm good to go. When I move into Lumion, I load that material set. So the idea is that maybe you would have like a series of swatches in a SketchUp model where one person could manage this and then create one material set for your entire office and manage that library. Truth be told, it takes some work. It takes some discipline, because a lot of people just like to simply grab and go. But then if you just spend a little bit of time, what do they say? Like, you know, an ounce of preparation's worth a pound of whatever, you know, productivity or something. It's if you just spend a little bit of time getting organized and be, you know, every time you make a new material, every time you assign those properties, just take the time to add it to your library, and you'll thank yourself later when you whip up a design, import into Lumion, load the material set, go to photo mode, load the effects stack, you're good to go. So that's the idea. And let me hop back into Lumion too and just show you under your materials. So once I've added all these different materials, I can click on this wrench and choose material set, and I can choose save. So I'm going to save this material set. It's called an .mtt material list. And so it saves it as this file. So now anytime I go into any other Lumion presentation, I can load that up. It'll bring those in. So there's a bit to it. Maybe we could do, I've got that queued up for a blog post and a tutorial, and that would be a nice thing to get under wraps. There's so many of these things that would be nice to just, you know, break it down and explain better.
Oh,
But
I think that really explained it well. Great. And then, you know, I certainly, you know, like we had talked about, is, you know, using this webinar for me to see what we might be able to do with our SketchUp export to facilitate the path. And I certainly see the potential to automatically make a containing component of all the different plants.
yeah,
And swap
yeah.
them out with a node component. So I already jotted that down. And then, but along with that node component, it just has to be anything. I mean, is that just literally is that just a small triangle that you literally it's just 3 lines in SketchUp that you made a component out of, or is there anything more to that node object?
No, that's correct. But I'll tell you, the one thing you got to be aware of is that, like, let's say, you know, like your first instinct would be, well, why don't I just bring in the plant and then swap it? Well, see, this one has a node like that. The RGB origin there is part of this grander one. This one has one. This one has one. So if you just simply pulled in this more complex plant, it would plant your tree on every single one of those nodes per plant. So that's the reason why it needs to be a very simple triangle. Ideally, it could be anything, but as long as it's one, as long as there's like basically like all this, if it were all exploded, so I just exploded all of that and broke it all down to just dumb geometry so that there's no nested containers with additional nodes. That way this plant will only, swap one. So, but I get why you guys build them like that, because it makes them more functional in SketchUp. I think it'd be smarter to have a proxy triangle and maybe put on like a layer called always off, and also have your plant, and then just let that be on layer 0.
I got you. Any reason why you definitely made it also very small? Is there a reason to having it small, or could it be 6 feet tall or so?
Yeah, it could totally be bigger. No problem there. Yeah.
That's great. And then, just one last question,
Sure.
and I'll let everybody go. Is sort of unrelated, but along the subject is D is asked if you have any good recommendations on getting better with SketchUp layout, and any classes or tutorials on that.
So we just put out a new course. This is like my perfect plug, right? All right. So if you want to give this a go, we have a class called SketchUp for Professionals. And this is a 12-hour long course. This is different than surfing on YouTube and trying to piece together, how do I do this stuff? How do I make better models? This is 12 straight hours of coursework with homework, very, very clear instruction with a very specific goal in mind, and that is for architects, interior designers, landscape architects, construction professionals. That's who we're talking to. If you create drawings, this is going to help you get there. Now, I'll tell you that of the 12 hours, 9 hours of it are totally free. And the last 3 hours that are kind of mixed in are $100. Let me log in and show you this course. What we do, though, is we go through everything that's going to eliminate all your headaches in, let's see, there we go, log in. All the headaches on how the program works. And then we go into building what we call a condoc model, because it's using our template and our layers and our organization system. And then ultimately, we move that model into layout. And I'm rather confident that layout one is part of the free. So that would be a good place to start. And we are working on another course for layout for professionals, as well as an advanced course. Everything's recorded in 4K. These are really cool. This is our first course like this, and we've got some more coming. So what I'd highly recommend is taking this course. At a bare minimum, just watch the free part of it, because that is going to get you so much more comfortable in SketchUp and understanding all these little nuances about like, why is it doing, what it's doing. And then this will get you into layout as well. So towards the end, there's a Lumion lesson, and then document a design, set up layers, styles, and scenes. And then here's where you create a layout presentation packet. So these are taking a moment to load, but yeah, everything's in there. Definitely well worth checking out. And certainly we never sell anything that we don't think is extremely valuable, and we don't give you, and not give you a chance to understand it. So check out the 9 hours and then, make the decision. It's pretty slick. So.
Well, that's just fantastic. I really just cannot thank you enough for this. I'm glad we finally got the stars to align and do this. And like I said, it was recorded, will be sent out, and wish everyone a great weekend. And I guess I will see you next in Los Angeles at the ASM.
Yep, that sounds good, Jeremiah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Mike. All right, bye-bye.
All right, see you guys.